Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to British Air Force's Rank 2 overview and guide. This is the next review in line. We're gonna go through all the planes. As you know, this will be a general overview of Rank 2 British. We'll go through all the planes, we'll give you the strengths, we'll give you the weaknesses, we'll go through the hangar, I'll give you some footage, and we'll talk about all the ups and all the downs of all the planes. We'll get through them and hopefully it will help you out to go through the tree a little bit faster, get a little bit more knowledge and help you out. That's the aim. Now before we begin, do make sure to like the video, leave me a comment, share, and of course subscribe if you haven't yet. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Also join me on my other platforms, Rumble and Locals. I highly appreciate it if you would take the time to do that. So let's jump right in. British Rank 2. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great Rank 2. So guys, let's get the show started with the 2.3 Hurricanes. There's two of them, the Mk IIB trop and the Mk I late. They're not sitting in a folder together because the trop is with the Mk IV, but the trop sits here in that folder and the Mk I late sits right there. They're basically the same, except with some minor details. We've got some decent armor protection with a good bulletproof glass there. We have a lot of guns for the 2B, that's 6 in each wing, 350 rounds per gun. We have a nicely tight spaced out fuel tank assembly here with the engine right there. There is some modifications on this one when it comes to armament. The rockets and 2 bombs. The one late doesn't have that, but the 2B does, and that is one of the advantages of that plane. But let's have a look at these two planes and see what they can do. The early Hurricanes, two of the most fantastic planes in this rank. I really love them. The Hurricane Mk IIB trop and the Hurricane Mk I late. They are both fantastic. The 2B has a little bit better engine and has some ground attacking options, and a few more guns, while the one late has a little bit less guns in the wings and thus has a little bit better roll rate. Those are the main differences between those two planes. Both are fantastic and very enjoyable. The 2.3 battle rating. What are the strengths in these two planes? Now they both have fantastic offensive guns. The one late has 8 machine guns, 7.7s. And the 2B has 12 of them, which is great. 350 rounds per gun, fantastic ammo load. The turn time in these planes are fantastic. They are really nice turners. They don't roll too well, especially the Mk IIB with the 12 guns in the wings doesn't roll that well. But and the performance in the 2B is quite good actually. The performance in the one late is also alright, but the 2B especially shines there. The weaknesses in these planes are the speeds. The Hurricanes, these 2.3 Hurricanes, are not fast at all. Not any Hurricane is particularly fast, by the way, but speed is a weakness. The climb rate in these things is definitely not good, especially in the one late, which has a worse engine. But the 2B is also a little bit heavier because of the 4 extra guns in the wing, so it basically all levels out for the climb rate, which is not great in these planes. And the roll rate isn't great either, especially in the 2B trop, which has 12 guns, 6 in each wings, 6 in each wing. That really doesn't help. And the one late also is not great. Roll rate is just a weakness in the Hurricanes. You have to really rely on turn time. The flight style in these planes is particularly turn fighting. They are very good at that. Despite the roll rate not being too great, they are good at dogfighting because of their good turn fighting capability. They can also boom and zoom a little bit. The top speed in a dive is not great, but at least it's a little bit better than the speed in straight lines. The planes can also close air support when it comes to that. At least the 2B can. It has rockets and options there, so you can definitely take the 2B trop out into ground RB, for example, and have a lot of fun there with the amazing amount of guns on it and the rockets. You can have you know, a nice time. I would say. Is this plane competitive? Yes, these two planes are definitely competitive, both of them in their own right. The one late is a little bit better at turn fighting, the dog fighting, because of the better roll rate, and the Hurricane Tube is a little bit more versatile with the close air support options and the guns, you know, extra guns. It has a few more options there compared to the one late, but both of them are competitive. The fun factor in this plane is high for me. It is just a lot of fun to fly the Hurricanes out. 2.3 battle rating, a very fun early World War II setting for most of these planes, and you really get that old feeling that you got from War Thunder in the beginning with the World War II vibe, the prop vibe. It's really nice for me, and the shenanigans you can pull with a Hurricane are great. A lot of fun. Is she recommended? Yeah, both of these planes are highly recommended. I really like both of them. There is something to say for the extra firepower of the Mk IIB trop and the extra engine power that it has, but the roll rate on the one late is also quite nice, so compared to this one it's basically a little bit better. So both of them are good planes that you can have a lot of success in and a lot of fun. So for that, they are also quite durable and survivable. They're rugged planes that makes it forgiving as well for beginning players. The next plane in line in the Hurricane line is the Hurricane Mk IV. It sits in the folder right here with the 2B trop at 2.3 battle rating as well, but this plane has a little bit of a different setup compared to the other Hurricanes, and that is a set of machine guns with 40mm Browning cannons. 40mm, that is fantastic. Explosions and shenanigans. We have a lot more armor because of course this is the ground attacker version, so you have a lot more survivability. That looks really nice. We have the same setup for the fuel, which is nice. We have the engine, which is a much better engine, the best engine in the Hurricanes at this battle rating. It is awesome. And we do have these big guns with 15 rounds per gun. We do have the 7.7s as well in there, but it's all about those 40mm guns. Of course you can set them up with rockets and bombs, but then you do not get these 40mm, and that's where the fun is at in this plane. So yeah, wouldn't run with anything else than these 40s. Let's have a look at her. Here we go, the Hurricane Mk IV. Big gun shenanigans, this plane. It is a very fun plane. That is an acquired speciality to shoot these guns accurately, but as big guns go, these two are actually quite accurate, and you'll get the hang of it if you put some time into this Hurricane. These big explosions, man, it's shenanigans. Really lovely. 2.3 battle rating this Hurricane as well. What are the strengths in this plane? The offensive guns, although there is a little bit of a learning curve to shooting them, these guns are fantastically fun and cause big explosions, so I can definitely say that that is a strength. The turn time in this plane is a strength, as all Hurricanes. This thing is quite maneuverable in a turn and can outturn many of the opponents, especially at its battle rating. And in up tiers, in down tiers, you're facing the biplane, so it's going to be more difficult. You will use it more as a boom and zoomer then. The performance in this plane is also quite good for a Hurricane, because this thing has 400 extra horsepower in its Merlin 24 engine, which is a little bit of a later engine compared to the other Hurricanes at 2.3. The one late, for example, has 400 horsepower less than this plane. So yeah, performance is a strength in the Hurricane Mk IV. The weaknesses in this plane are the speed, the flight, the frame still does not really give you high speeds in this plane, despite the extra horsepower. Climb rate also is not fantastic in this plane, and the roll rate still is not good, because you do have two 40mm guns hanging from the wings with the ammo, and you know, it's a Hurricane, so it doesn't really roll particularly well anyway, and especially not with the weight on these wings. The flight style in this plane, she's a turn fighter, so you can do that exceptionally well. And in the down tiers, I would say you go boom and zooming in this plane. And if you want to go ground pounding in ground RB or in air RB, going for a column here and there, this plane is also very capable of that and can definitely fit the close air support role. Is this plane competitive? I would say yes. This plane is very competitive. Nice engine on her as Hurricanes go, and 2.3 battle rating as well. So yeah, competitive with the big guns. I love it. Fun factor is high. I love these big gun shenanigans with this thing at the lower battle ratings. These guns are actually quite accurate, so I quite like it. High fun factor for me. Do I recommend this plane? My recommendation is medium. You have to put some time in this plane. It is not easy to learn to shoot these guns. Some people cannot land them yet. You have to put some time into that. Once you get it down though, this plane is very much recommended. But if you're jumping into this plane, if you're jumping into the Hurricanes in general, you can better take a 2B trop or a 1 late and, you know, work your way up to the Hurricane Mk IV, because you do need to get the aim down on this plane. And if you don't have that, then this plane is not recommended. It can be actually quite frustrating then. Get your experience in the other Hurricanes first. Practice with this a little bit in flight tests. Test flights, and you'll be fine when you get the aim down, and you can have a lot of fun in this plane. It is actually my favorite Hurricane, so yeah, that says something, right? There's a lot of fun Hurricanes out there, so yeah, medium recommendation for that reason. But once you get the aim down, go for it. The last plane you'll find in the Hurricane line rank 2 Brits is the Typhoon Mk I. It sits right here in the tree with a 3.0 battle rating, and it is a big ass plane, massive plane, decent protection, bulletproof glass protection from the back, and some more steel plates here, which are not fantastically thick, so it's not gonna do too much, but at least it is something. We've got the X-ray here. We've got a little bit of a different setup when it comes to fuel tanks. They're definitely more spaced out in the wings and such. We also have 12 guns in total with a lot of ammunition that sit in the wing, so you do have to deal with conversions, that is more important, and stuff like that. And we have an inline engine with almost 2000 horsepower, which is an amazing amount of firepower. You can equip some other loadouts, 500 pounders and 250 pounders, 2 of them for both loads. That is nice for ground attack and stuff like that, but very interesting. Let's see what you can do. We're looking at the Typhoon Mk Ia, a plane that gives you a whole different perspective on the British line, and it's nice to have different tastes, different flavors, right? This plane is more of an energy fighter, a boom and zoomer with 2000 horsepower under the hood. It's really a very powerful plane, and a lot of fun to fly. Just a different brand compared to many of the turn fighting capability planes that you have in the British rank 2, so it provides a different flavor, which is nice. 3.0 battle rating. What are the strengths in this plane? The speed is a definite strength in the Typhoon. It is a very fast plane at this battle rating. It has almost 2000 horsepower in the engine, which is quite nice and quite effective when it comes to that, especially in down tiers. You are super fast, almost untouchable. The offensive guns are great. You have 12 7.7mm Browning machine guns, which is a lot of firepower. Nice ammo loads on that as well. 500 rounds with 8 of the guns, and 460 rounds for 4 of the guns. Great ammo loads, fantastic. Performance in this plane is magnificent with a 200 horsepower engine, good acceleration, good stuff like that. It's nice. Climb rate also quite nice in this plane. The durability in this plane is also good. It's a very sturdy plane, very heavily built. It's quite nice. It doesn't make it a maneuverable plane, but it is definitely survivable. There is weaknesses in this plane, of course. That is one. The maneuverability is a definite downside. The roll rate is not fantastic compared to many of those nimble early light fighters, and this plane just doesn't have that. It's a little bit more of a heavy plane, especially also with them 12 guns in the wings, right? Doesn't really help the roll rate either. And there is compression at high speeds in the Typhoon, so you can definitely crash this plane into the ground in high speed dives. If you're too steep at the end, you're gonna hit that compression, hit that control stiffening like a maniac and you're gonna crash into the ground. So be aware of that. What is the flight style in this plane? It's an energy fighter first, a boom and zoomer second, and it can definitely do close air support. It has a lot of guns, soft targets, and a lot of ammo, but it also has a few bomb options. Not a lot, but you can definitely take it. It has the durability for it, and yeah, but I mean, you would definitely spend most of your time in the vertical with this plane as an energy fighter, transferring between the boom and zoom role and the energy fighting role, which is a lot of fun. Competitive, this plane at its battle rating, yes, I would say yes, although she can be quite unforgiving sometimes. It's one-dimensional and it has that compression to deal with while you are looking at boom and zoom as well for a playstyle, so it can be a little bit of risk in there. And the guns can be a little bit frustrating, although I would say it's a strength. They can sometimes give you hits only, and that is might be a little bit of a frustration there. What is the fun factor in this plane? Well, medium, for those reasons mentioned with the competitiveness as well, that it is a little bit if and touch and go with the guns, and sometimes with the compression it can be a little bit dangerous. You cannot really transition into the turn fighting role, and well, maybe, you know, for that it's a little bit unforgiving, for especially for beginning pilots. Do you recommend this plane still? I would say still, despite the downsides, I highly recommend this plane, even if the fun is not as high as some of the other planes in this rank. It is a different flavor that you have with this plane, and it can definitely net you good results as a boom and zoomer and energy fighter. So yeah, I can highly recommend this plane. We arrived at the Spitfire line. Spitfires, very iconic. We start off with the 1A and the 2A 3.0 battle rating. Very similar. We're gonna review these two in the same little clip here. So we're gonna look at these two planes. Together they have the same setup, armor protection, a bulletproof glass and some armor in the back for the pilot's protection. We do have the guns in the wings, 8 of them, both of them have the same setup. Fuel is right here, is also quite similar. They do have different engines, but their horsepower turnout only differs 20 horsepower between the two, so that is actually quite similar. They do not have any options for ground pounding or other ordnance to be put on there, so they're pure fighters. Let's have a look at these beauties. The early Spitfires are definitely beauties, aren't they? Fantastic looking planes that really catch the eye, make you fall in love with them. But I have to say, in game, these Spitfires Mark 1A and 2A are planes that have some upsides, but they definitely also have their downsides. And at the battle rating of 3.0, it is questionable as to their correctness in battle rating, let's say, in the game. But let's get into them and get into the details. The strengths in these two Spitfires are the offensive guns. They are both running with 8 7.7 Browning machine guns. Decent ammo lows, nothing wrong with that. Good firepower at this battle rating. Some planes at 2. This is 3.0. So the firepower is not as fantastic as they are on 2.3, but I would still call them a strength because of the sustainable, consistent firepower and trustworthy. Once you get your aim down on with these guns, they can be very effective. The speeds in these Spitfires are also quite nice at the battle rating, especially in the down tiers, but they are competitive when it comes to speed. Maneuverability is of course something they excel at. The Spitfires are often mentioned as some of the better turn fighters in game. Of course, there's a lot of planes in game that are good at turn fighting, but the Spitfires are definitely among them, and great to fly in turn fighting, dogfights, confrontations. It is lovely to be in a Spitfire, so there is that. But there is also some weaknesses though, and we do have to talk about them because these planes are at 3.0 battle rating, and I think that is because of the general sense in people to start dogfighting and turning, and a lot of people in boom and zoomers and energy fighters start to do that as well. That's why I think the average performance in the two Spitfires, early Spitfires, is so high because they are so good at turn fighting. But they do have definite downsides. There is definite overheating in these planes that is very noticeable compared to some of the other planes running with Merlins. these planes overheat like maniacs, and it's definitely a problem for the people who don't use Mk. Now the performance in these planes is also a problem, because they're running with their Merlin engines, but they're running at 3.0 battle rating with the same kind of horsepower as the Hurricane Mark I late, which sits at 2.3 battle rating and is the weakest Hurricane there when it comes to engine power. And these two Spitfires have the same engine power as that Hurricane. So the performance is not good. It is definitely underpowered, the Spitfire and these two Spitfires at the battle rating where they sit. Now these planes are also not great in a dive. The dive performance, the handling is not good. And you do have the early flap rip problem that is prevalent in the Spitfire line, and it is no different for the early ones. You have flaps ripping off at 270, 280, and that can be a problem when you're in a dogfight and you deploy those flaps. So that is very unforgiving. These Spitfires are very unforgiving at the battle rating where they sit right now, so be aware of that. The flight style in these planes is turn fighting as their main role. They are really built for turn fighting. That's why they are so good in the general populace, because many of the early players try to dogfight in whatever plane they're in, and if you're then in a Spitfire, you're gonna win. So that's why these Spitfires are at 3.0 battle rating. At least that's my theory. Another role they can fulfill is energy fighting, but with the overheating and the basically underperforming engine at this battle rating, is not the greatest. So I would focus on turn fighting in this plane and do the energy fighting when you start the fight. But once you get into the dogfights, that is can be quite entertaining. Competitive, these planes are barely competitive. I would still say yes, because I like them personally, but they have some damn downsides at 3.0 battle rating that are very significant, and thus I would say yes, but barely. What is the fun factor in these Spitfires? I would say medium. There is some definite downsides to this, which you really have to be a decent pilot to work around them. It is not easy to win consistently in these early Spitfires. They're very unforgiving, not very trustworthy in a dive. You have those flaps which give you a heart attack sometimes, and it is difficult to operate these planes with the overheating and stuff like that. It's just yeah, underperforming. So medium fun factor. Do I recommend these Spitfires then? How high do I value them? I would again say medium. These Spitfires, they are fun, but they should be a little bit lower in battle rating in my opinion, and they are difficult to consistently compete in at 3.0 battle rating. If you're an experienced pilot, go for it, but if you're a beginner, leave these early Spitfires alone. You're better off in one of the early 2.3 battle rating Hurricanes, trust me on that one. Moving on in the Spitfire line, we arrive at the Mark IIB, a Spitfire with cannons, lovely. We've got Hispanos, that's always good. It sits right here at 3.7 battle rating at the end of the Spitfire line in rank 2, and 3.7, that's quite a big jump when it comes to battle rating. The armor setup is still the same, very similar, exactly the same actually. The outward machine guns in both wings are in the same place, but then we've got the inner pair replaced by a 20mm Hispano with 60 rounds. Same setup for the fuel here, there's nothing different there, and this engine also has the same amount of horsepower, so that is quite a big jump in battle rating with no increase in engine power. Again, no other armament, so you're gonna have to work this plane as a full out fighter, which what it's made for, but let's have a look at how she does. Hey guys, the Spitfire Mk IIB staring right at you still. Again, a great looking plane, and the first cannon bearing Spitfire, which is always interesting, and great turn fighter still. There is some strings to this plane at 3.7 battle rating that we have to mention. The offensive guns, as I said, this is the first Spitfire that runs with the Hispano Mark 1s, 60 rounds per gun. That is not great, but the effective firepower of these Hispanos is quite good in this patch, so yeah, they are nice. Maneuverability in this plane is great. It is a very maneuverable plane, a turn fighter, dedicated, and you can turn fight against pretty much anything you face except a few zeros. and a few planes here and there that can compete, but for the rest you can definitely hold your own in a turn fight in this plane, which is nice. The climb rate in this plane is also nice, although the engine is underperforming. It can still climb, and you definitely don't have to extensively side climb in this plane. There are some weaknesses though. If you don't use Mk, the overheating in this plane is absolutely terrible, and I heard some people say that even with Mk it is quite the hot plane when it comes to that, which is not a good thing. The performance in this engine as well is severely lacking. You have a Merlin engine in this plane that is comparable in horsepower to the Hurricane Mark I late, which is a 2.3 battle rating, a full battle rating, more than a full battle rating lower than this plane, and this one has to compete with planes with 2000 and better engine bearing planes. It is severely underpowered, this Spitfire, at 3.7 battle rating. The engine is ancient. Dive performance is still a problem, like with most Spitfires in this plane. You can rip some wings if you're not careful. And the flaps is an issue as well. They do rip off very early when it comes to flap rippage. The Spitfires are known and famous for that flap rippage early. You have to be careful with that. The flight style in this plane is a turn fighter first, which you can do very well. You can feel comfortable in a dogfight. There's no problem with that. And an energy fighter. The frame really supports energy fighting, but the engine in this thing does not. These early Spitfires have been increased in battle rating along the way because they do so well in turn fights, which is what most people do at these early stages, despite being in boom and zoom planes or something like that. So these planes basically overperform when it comes to general stats, and they have a higher battle rating because of that, but their engines do not support this higher battle rating, let's say that. So yeah, turn fighter mainly. Is this plane competitive at its battle rating? No, not really. This plane is severely underpowered, and I would not say that it's competitive anymore. I said yes, barely, with the other Spitfires at this battle rating, but this one has a bit of a problem when it comes to engine power. Fun factor for me then is medium, because you are faced with planes that are much more powerful than you, and you will have a lot of frustrating moments in this plane despite the good guns and the turn time power on this plane. As a turn fighter, she's great. Do you recommend this plane? How high do you value her? I would say again, medium. This is a mixed bag. This plane is not having the engine power that it needs for the 3.7 battle rating. 4.7 up tiers against some very powerful planes is a problem in this plane. And the upsides of this plane just don't bear up to the problems in the engine power, I would say. We arrived at the Sea Hurricane Mark IB, the start of the Naval-Line in rank 2 bridge, coming from the Sea Gladiator right here, going to the Sea Hurricane Mark IB, sitting at 2.0 battle rating. Quite nice. Same armor protection as the other Hurricanes, which is quite decent. We have an X-ray with a nice assortment of fuel tanks that is exactly the same loadout, with the guns in the wings and the engine right here. A little bit more engine power, but a little bit heavier build because of the carrier landings that it had to withstand, and that really equals it out. This is one of the worst climbing Hurricanes. We'll come to the worst one in a sec, but no other armament than the gun, so no ground pounding with this Hurricane. Let's check her out. Ah yes, another Hurricane. The Sea Hurricane Mark IB, sitting at 2.0 battle rating. It's a Hurricane, man, and that is always fun. What are the strengths in this Hurricane? The plane has offensive guns, 8 of them, 7.7 Browning machine guns with quite a bit of ammo. Nice guns at this battle rating. I quite like it, as I said. The turn time is a definite strength in this Sea Hurricane as well. Just like the usual Hurricanes, it has about the same kind of maneuverability, although these planes are a little bit more heavily built because they need to sustain carrier landing, so there is always that. It has the same engine as the one late, but it has 200 more horsepower. Maybe it's an adjusted engine as the compared to the one late. So the performance in this plane is quite nice, but because of that little bit heavier build, you don't really notice a big jump in performance when it comes to that. This plane is also quite durable. What are the weaknesses in the Sea Hurricane? Well, it's speed. For one, it is not a fast plane, just like most of the other Hurricanes. It is slow, and you really have to adjust to being a turn fighter with planes coming in and you luring them into turn fights. Give them a shot, avoid the shot, and then hope they turn. The climb rate is also not great in the Sea Hurricane. It's a little bit worse than some of the other Hurricanes because of its heavier build, because of the carrier landings. The roll rate in this plane is a definite downside. It doesn't roll too well. That is known for the Hurricanes, and this one is a little bit of a heavier plane, as I said, because of that carrier landing build. It just always has a little bit more structural integrity in there to sustain those big bangs on the carrier deck. Flight style in this plane, she is a turn fighter mainly. That she can do very well, and she can boom and zoom a little bit in there. And if you take a little bit of time to side climb in this plane, you can definitely do short boom and zoom runs. When you are in a down tier, focus more on the boom and zooming. When you are in an up tier, focus more on the turn fighting. You have to adjust your tactic compared to the plane that you're fighting against when it comes to that. Very important in the Hurricanes. Is she competitive? Yes, this plane is definitely competitive. At a 2.0 battle rating, you get a plane with a better engine than the Mark I late at 2.3. So competitive, same kind of guns, a little bit heavier, but it's all good when it comes to Hurricanes at 2.0. What is the fun factor in this plane? High fun factor in this Sea Hurricane. I quite like it. She is an awesome little beast out there, and you can have a lot of shenanigans in this Sea Hurricane with down tiers to 1.0s, up tiers to 3.0. She sits in the correct spot, I would say. Do I recommend this plane? How high do I value the Sea Hurricane? I would say I highly recommend this Hurricane 1B. It is at a 2.0 battle rating, which is ideal for a Hurricane with these qualities. And you can have a lot of fun. You can switch between boom and zooming in the down tiers. You can turn fight pretty much everything in an up tier. So this Hurricane really stands its ground, and you can have fantastic matches in the Hurricanes. Lovely, even without a propeller, as you see here, where we do smash the enemy E1 into oblivion. But yeah, I can highly recommend the 1B. It's a great Hurricane, and it's a lovely plane. Here we go with the cannon cane, very famous, the Sea Hurricane Mark IC, a Hurricane with 4 Hispano Mark II cannons. That is something nobody would pass up on. Of course, 3.0 battle rating coming right after the 1B. We have the 1C. That's quite a leap for the battle rating, let's say. But yeah, there you have it. We have the same armor protection in this plane. Same setup again, the traditional Hurricane setup with the fuel tanks right here, but this time no small guns, just 4 massive 20mm Hispano Mark II cannons with 125 rounds, which is quite nice. There is no further armament on this plane when it comes to bombs or rockets or stuff like that. So pure fighter, and what did I forget? The engine is the same as on the 2.01 with a heavier load when it comes to guns. So let's have a look at how that works. The cannon cane, the Sea Hurricane Mark IC, also known as the cannon cane, is a famous plane in War Thunder. A plane that has always been fun, lots of shenanigans, 4 20mm Hispano Mark IIs in this, which is quite fun with a great turn time in this plane, and a little bit less than some of the other Hurricanes, which might be a little bit more maneuverable. But all in all, this Hurricane is quite interesting. It has devastating firepower, but it has increased in battle rating over time. Let's get into this plane. The strengths in this plane at a 3.0 battle rating these days. The offensive guns, you do have 4 20mm Hispano Mark IIs, not ones, twos, and that is excellent. Firepower with the ammo loads, 125 rounds per gun. It is fantastic. I really love the guns. There is that. The turn time in the plane is also good as for all. They're a little bit less on the roll rate because of these heavy guns in the wings, but for that, yeah, that's what it is. It has the same engine as the 1B at 3.0, so there is that. The performance is alright. It has better engine power than the Spitfires, the early Spitfires at this battle rating, so that is a good thing. There is weaknesses though. The speed is definitely noticeable at the 3.0 battle rating. It is not a fast plane, and the higher the Hurricanes get, the more noticeable it is. At 3.0 battle rating, the speed is a definite downside. Climb rate is definitely not good. This is a very heavy plane with all this ammo as well. This is one of the worst climbing Hurricanes in the game, and you should definitely keep that in mind. He can't climb for shit. The roll rate in this plane is also really a weakness. In the other Hurricanes it is also not great, but with this one, man, gee, it's even worse. Flight style in this plane is turn fighting first. Flat turns are great. She can boom and zoom short runs. Nothing fancy in the long-term dive, of course, because it's just not great for speeds. But this plane can boom and zoom a little bit and has great stopping power, especially with these guns. She cannot do any close air support because she does not have any bomb loads, just like the Sea Hurricane. They cannot do close air support. Is this Sea Hurricane competitive? I would say yes, barely though, because it is a plane that is lacking at a 3.0 battle rating. It is not the greatest plane in the world, but I would still say yes, because in the hands of an experienced pilot, this plane can wreak havoc. It's a fun plane when it comes to that, and thus I would say the fun factor is high. You have a surprise on your hands with this devastating stopping power. For Hispano Mark IIs is nothing to sniff at 3.0 battle rating, and there's a lot of shenanigans to be had in the cannon cane. Is she recommended? How high do you value this plane? A medium. It is a plane that is difficult to operate at 3.0, up tiers to 4.0. It doesn't have the speed, it doesn't have the performance that is necessary to outperform certain planes, so you have to really outsmart planes. You do have great firepower though, and good turn time, so maneuverability is there, and the plane can be a lot of fun when it comes to that, but you need experience for it. So I would say medium. For beginning pilots, I would say take the other one. For more expert pilots, I would say yes, cannon cane all the way. Ain't she pretty, gents? Ain't she pretty? The Beaufighter Mark X. We're gonna review the Beaufighters in this little clip together because they both sit at 3.0. This is the whole attacker line in rank 2 bridge. Two Beaufighters, the Mark 6C and the Mark X, same battle rating, both of them. The armor protection in the planes is exactly the same, with a bulletproof glass and some armor protection here and there in the plane. Nothing too fancy. We've got the fuel tanks spaced out in the wings, so if you get hit in the wings, sometimes you do catch that fire. There is that. We have 20mm cannons in both of these planes, but this Mark X has 6 machine guns, 4 in one wing and 2 in the other. That extra compared to the other one. And this one also has rockets, 8 of them. This torpedo is on both of these Beaufighters, and well, you can use them then in naval, of course. Doesn't give you much benefit on land, but this one can also equip some rockets. So let's check these planes out. The Beaufighters, both of these planes are very nice. There is some differences between the 6C and the 10 though. They both have torpedoes. The 10 has some extra options when it comes to ground pounding, and that is rockets. You can equip 8 rockets if you want to. There is Hispano Mark 1s on the 6C, and there's Hispano Mark 2s on the 10 with extra machine guns. The 10 also has some better engines with a little bit more horsepower, but there is also extra weight on the Mark 10 because of the 6 machine guns in the wings, making a little bit less in the roll rate and a little bit heavier, so that really equals out in the climb rate when it comes to that. The strengths in these Beaufighters at 3.0 battle rating, both of them, is the offensive guns. It is fantastic, the amount of firepower. The C doesn't have the, or the 6C doesn't have the machine guns, but it does have 4 20mm Mark I Hispanos. The 10 has 4 Mark II Hispanos, and has the 6 machine guns added to that. So the firepower is fantastic. These planes are very durable, they can soak a lot of damage, and they do get an air start, and with the climb rate they do have, combined with that air start, the climb rate is good eventually. The net result to how high you are, you will need a little bit of side climbing in the end, but on smaller maps it's a definite advantage. On bigger maps the fighters will have the chance to catch up to you in the altitude advantage. And next to that, the speeds in this plane in a straight line are actually quite surprising for these big planes. So there's plenty of power in these planes, and plenty of speed as well. Weaknesses in this plane is the roll rate in the end, especially in the 10, which has 6 machine guns with a lot of ammo in those wings, and that makes it a little bit touch and go on the roll rate. But the 6C is also not great in roll rate to begin with. Maneuverability overall is not great, and it does have a big profile, so you are easily hit and not very survivable when it comes to that, especially when looking at the pilot position in a really kind of big cockpit with a lot of glass in it. The flight style in this plane is boom and zooming. When it comes to the main flight styles, you can boom and zoom the best. It's not really an energy fighter or a turn fighter, although she is, when it comes to these kind of planes, quite maneuverable, but in the end with the fighters you face it's not great. But she's mainly a support fighter. That's the main role you gotta fit yourself in. If you have to do one of the main roles, it's boom and zooming, but she is a support fighter coming from the fringes, helping planes out that are being attacked. With its devastating firepower, this plane can be a lifesaver. She can also do close air support in naval for the 6C with the torpedo, but the 10 does have 8 rockets that it can equip and can be quite good in ground RB as well. Are these planes competitive at 3.0? I would say yes, these are one of the more fun and good heavy fighters at this battle rating. So yes, I quite like the Beaufighters, quite competitive. Fun factor for me in these planes is high. You do have a lot of firepower, and the support fighter role can be quite addictive and fun to fly. Big explosions with much heavy with the great cannons that you have on both of these planes. Do I recommend these Beaufighters? How high do I value them? Well, both of these Beaufighters are highly recommended. The Mark 10 is a little bit better in the end, I would say. They're both at 3.0, but it has the machine guns, 6 of them with 6,000 rounds of ammunition, so 1,000 rounds per gun. You can do ground pounding in this plane. It's a little bit more versatile, has a little bit more power in the end. So the Mark 10 really has the advantage over the 6C. But in the end, both of these planes can hold their own at 3.0 battle rating, and especially the Mark 10 is highly fun and highly versatile, ground pounding capable, and yeah, just a lot of fun, man. So I highly recommend the Beaufighters. You need to experience these planes. They are great. One of the crown jewels of rank 2 Brits is definitely the Sunderland Mk V, sitting at 2.0 battle rating. This bomber slash gunship is absolutely fantastic. Here it sits coming after the Sunderland Mk IIIa. The Mk V sits right here in the tree. We do have no armor on this plane. So not a lot of protection, although the underside of the boat gives a lot of protection. So there is that as well. So there might be no armor in this, but this plane can soak a lot of damage. That is for sure. We have the fuel tanks spaced out In the wings, nothing terrible there, because many of these boats have a lot of fuel tanks in the fuselage, and this one can actually soak more damage because it doesn't have that, so without catching a fire. So I quite like that about this one. We do have limited amounts of bomb loads on this plane, only 250 pound bombs and 4 500 pound bombs. There's not a lot. But what we do have on this plane is an insane amount of turrets. We have a back gunner, that is great, this one. We have these two guns here, and more guns over here. We have guns in the front, and we have fixed guns, offensive guns as well, to protect yourself. This really is a gunship. Throw some bombs off and then go gunshipping, and that can be a lot of fun. Let's go gunshipping. This Sunderland Mk V is absolutely fantastic. This is one of my favorite bombers in the whole game of War Thunder, and it sits right here at the start of the British Rank 2 bomber line. Sunderland Mk V 2.0 battle rating. Fantastic plane. It has everything you would want in a bomber, except the bomb loads, but let's get into that. The strengths in this plane is the offensive guns to start. It has offensive guns, and that is fantastic. 7.7mm guns, but still it has offensive guns, so you can shoot at things coming at you from the front, and that I really like that in bombers. That is great, especially at 2.0 battle rating, where you have a little bit more chance before you get shot down. Now this plane is very durable as well. It is very survivable. It can soak a lot of damage, and that is a great thing to have on a bomber. It has great turrets as well, especially the back turret is absolutely fantastic. And when planes come a little bit from above, from behind, man, you have a lot of guns shooting at it. So turret placements are great. Now the weaknesses in this plane is the bomb loads. Mainly it has 4 500 pound bombs as the main load. That is just not very great, is it? I mean, this is a bomber. It is not as much as a bomber as it is a gunship. And I like the gunship role for this one. So yeah, you throw off the bombs on a base, get the points from it, and just start attacking fighters and attackers that you see, and have fun with it. It's great. Big profile though, that is also a downside. It is easy to hit this plane and get shots in. It is durable though, so that is good, but it is not difficult to hit this plane, so that's a downside. The speeds is another thing. This is an absolute slow plane. It's like a turtle among turtles, a big one. It is just very slow and big, so be aware of that. You are an easy target when it comes to that. A flight style in this Sunderland is a base bomber. She can do some close air support if you would like. Not great though, but she's a support fighter or a gunship if you would have it. That is its main role and the main attraction to the Sunderland as well. It is so much fun to go at it with a couple of guys in Sunderlands. I released a video the other day for a squad gameplay for the Sunderland. It is so much fun. It's some of the best fun you can have when you get proficient with a bomber like this. And I could improve my gameplay, sure, but it is a lot of fun to fly in this plane. Absolutely. Now, is he competitive? Yes, I would say yes, he is. It is a great bomber, great turret placements, very survivable, very durable, offensive guns on it, great turrets. There are some downsides, of course, but yeah, I would say she's competitive at this battle rating. What is the fun factor in the Sunderland? I would say high. This plane guarantees shenanigans. You are a gunship, you are dangerous, even to fighters. And yeah, she's a lot of fun to fly. Get the bombs off, get some points, and then go at it against planes, against attackers, against other bombers. It's just a lot of fun. Is she recommended by you? How high do you value her? I would say I recommend this plane highly. This is the best bomber in the game. Well, not one of the best bombers in the game compared to battle rating. This plane is just absolute joy to fly. Great gunship, and there's other planes like this, other bombers like this that are definitely competitive. But as you go along in the battle ratings, the firepower in planes increase and bombers become a little bit less viable. But in these early battle ratings, they are still huge amounts of fun. So play the Sunderland. don't miss out. We arrived at the Wellingtons, coming after the Sunderland in the British rank 2 bomber line. We have a whole folder of them right here, 4 different marks of Wellingtons you have here, running from 2.3 to 3.3 battle rating. Quite interesting, these planes. They have not a lot of armor in there. They have usually the fuel tanks spaced out in the wings. We have some gunners in the back, a few here, and gunners in the front. For the first one that is quite acceptable, but later on that will become a problem. I'll show you that. We have some decent bomb options with 250 pound bombs, 80 of them, 9 500 pounders. We have some setups here with some mixing. We have torpedoes, and we have the great good old 4,000 pound Mark II bomb, which is a huge ass bomb that can be a lot of fun sitting right here underneath the plane. So let's check these Wellingtons out. Are they worth your time? The Wellingtons, they are famed, very famous for their looks and for the role that they played in the war. But the Wellingtons are a little bit of a mixed bag when it comes to that in War Thunder itself. Let's see what this plane actually has to offer in War Thunder itself, next to its interesting looks, right? The strengths in this plane are its durability. These planes can soak a lot of damage no matter which one you'll take. There's 4 of them in the folder, as you saw, and basically they are all quite durable. Of course, the 3.31 will have more problems surviving, because in up tiers especially you get hit by a lot more firepower than the 2.31. So there is that, but overall the durability in the Wellingtons is quite nice. Now the bomb loads are also quite nice and interesting, especially the 4,000 kilogram, the 4 pounds actually, the 4,000 pound bomb is very, very interesting. It is a big bomb at this battle rating, and you can have a lot of fun with that bomb on columns and on bases. Are there any weaknesses to this plane? Well, yes, the speed. It's not very fast, not any of them. They are not very maneuverable either, and they barely have any defense when it comes to turrets. Even the later ones are crap when it comes to that. So speed is crap, maneuverability and turrets are terrible. There's not a lot of protection, not a lot of firepower, and not a lot of defensive capabilities. Now you do have the durability as a strength, but it doesn't really match up, right, in the end. The flight style in this plane is that of a base bomber. It could in theory do some close air support, but I would say this plane is a base bomber. Trying to get back to base and get a second run in is the most you can hope for. Sometimes you can get a fighter shot down by one of your turrets, or get them to fly into the explosion of a bomb one day when they swarm you, which can happen definitely on the second run. Is this plane competitive? I would say for the first one at 2.3 battle rating, I would still say yes to that one. For the others I would say no. The battle rating goes up quite rapidly in these Wellingtons, and it doesn't improve enough to warrant the battle rating. It's just not good enough in any of the parables, the variables that you have on these bombers. It just doesn't have enough oomph to it. So yeah, the first one is competitive, 2.3 battle ratings, the others are not. What is the fun factor in these Wellingtons? I would say low. You do not have a big enough chance to shoot enemy planes down. You do not thus have enough survivability despite the durability. The 4,000 pound bomb is nice, but for the rest there is precious little joy to be had from this plane, unless when you get a bomb kill like on this guy. But you know, those are the exceptions. He died in the end. Do I recommend these Wellingtons? How high do I value them? Low, with an exclamation mark. I would say when you have a Sunderland at your disposal at 2.0 battle rating, why would you ever fly a Wellington at any of these battle ratings? The 2.31 cannot stand in the shadow of the Sunderland, so I would stay away from these Wellingtons. Alright, last but not least, the Halifax B Mk IIA, the last bomber in rank 2 Brits. for the bomber line, and sits right here. 4.0 battle rating, quite a jump up, I would say. A little bit of armor protection on this plane, nothing too fancy and nothing too much, and you will notice that in the survivability, although it can soak quite a bit of damage. We have the fuel tanks here in the wings with 2 fuel tanks here in front. It's not bad for the setup. There's nothing here in the fuselage, nothing close by to the fuselage, so I quite like this setup. It didn't get a lot of fires in this plane. That is nice. We do have limited bomb loads, but the biggest bomb load is great. 9 times 1000 pounders with 6 500 pounders. That is for a 4.0 plane quite a good loadout and quite enjoyable. We do have nice turrets, but at least placement. Although you have nothing in the bottom of the plane and not much to the sides, but anyway, you have 2 massive 4-gun turrets, but the guns in there, well, we can talk about that while we look at this plane. So here we have the Halifax, finally the Halifax, the last plane in this rank review, and this is a bomber that is quite interesting when you look at the bomb loads, which are very strong. But a 4.0 battle rating is quite high. This is the highest battle rating plane in rank 2 Brits. And you notice that. Despite this plane being quite good, the battle rating really warrants different turret guns basically. But we'll get into that. The bomb loads are fine, by the way. That is definitely one of the strengths. The bomb loads is absolutely fantastic. You have only 3 of them. You have 15 250 pound bombs, 15 500 pound bombs, and then 9 times 1000 with 6 500 pound bombs. So that last bomb load that you get is absolutely fantastic. It is a competitive bomb load and it's definitely good. The durability in this plane is also a good thing. It can soak a lot of damage and you can definitely take some. It is difficult though, because on the weakness side we have the turret guns. You have 2 great turrets with 4 guns each on the roof and in the back, but they hold 7.7 millimeter Browning machine guns. And those are not great at a 4.0 battle rating. You actually need 50 cals on these. And then it would be absolutely stunning firepower from the back. With 8 50 cals going backwards, that would be fantastic, right? 4 on the roof, 4 in the back. But the 7.7s just don't cut it at this battle rating. With the speed your enemy planes have that attack you, with the firepower that they have, these turrets are just a little bit on the weak side. They are more 2.7, 3.3 range turret guns. You would want to have 50 cals by now, but yeah, this plane doesn't have that, so that's a definite weakness. The speed in this plane is also a weakness. It's a slow bomber and the maneuverability is not great at all. It's a big target in the end as well. The flight style in this plane is very simple. It's a base bomber and nothing else can be done basically in this plane. Is she competitive? I would say yes still, but barely. You can definitely get your bombs off. It gets a high start, but it's not great. The fun factor in this plane is quite low. It's very frustrating with these guns. You get a lot of hits with planes that you do hit when you fire at them. And with 50 cals you might get kills and fires already, and that's quite frustrating, I have to say, with the 7.7s. So low fun factor for me. Do I recommend this plane? How high do I value it? I would say low. I really cannot recommend this bomber with a Sunderland in the line at 2.0. It's much more fun and much more good for your health, basically, for your mental state. This plane is just too frustrating at 4.0. You get too many very strong opponents against you, and with these turrets, the survivability really drops, despite the great bomb loads and the damage you can do to enemy bases with it. This plane should have either better guns in the turrets or a lower battle rating. Hey guys, we've reached the end of the video with the guide and tips section. You have made it this far, fantastic. Now let's have a look at these planes. Let's have a look at the rank which planes can help you the best, which planes are most efficient for their battle rating and will help you through this line when it comes to grinding as quickly as possible. Now we have a lot of planes, a lot of variety, as I said. There's a lot of iconic planes here, which I quite like. And it is a good line with a lot of choices, but it's also, on the other hand, it's actually quite limited when you look at effectiveness at the battle rating. And while saying that, I am thinking about beginning pilots that want to grind to this line as quickly as they can. All these planes are very workable for an experienced pilot, especially at these battle ratings. But there's definitely some that will cause you a little bit more struggle than others. Now the early Hurricanes, especially these two, the Hurricane Mk IIB trop and the Mk IV, are fantastic for their battle rating. Decent amount of power and great armaments. The Hurricane Mk I late is also good, no problem with that, but it just has a little bit less to offer than the Mk IIB trop, and I would definitely be looking at that plane to fly when I have to choose between those two. The Mk IV is for shenanigans and fun. The fun factor is high and can also be very efficient. More difficult to aim, that's for sure, but more fun for the experienced pilot. It is, for me personally, together with the Sunderland, the best plane in rank 2. But for reliability and consistency, the Hurricane Mk IIB for beginners is a fantastic plane to start out in. The Typhoon is a little bit higher in a battle rating, a lot more horsepower under the hood with 2000 horsepower, a lot of guns, and but there is limitation in the roll rate and compression, so it might be a little bit less forgiving, and it is a higher battle rating as well. We have these Spitfires here that are underpowered for their battle rating, 3.0 battle rating for these early ones with the same engines as the 2.3 Hurricanes, same kind of horsepower. So although the Spitfires of course are iconic and a lot of people will start to play this game for the Spitfires, these early Spitfires are a little bit too high in battle rating and can be difficult and a little bit unforgiving when it comes to that. But in the beginning gameplay, when you start off, you start to turn a lot, and that is what these planes are good at, so they might actually work for you. The 3.7 Spitfire is a bit of a no-go for me because it has still the same engine at a 3.7 battle rating, comparably to the 2.3 Hurricanes running with the same engine. That is a little bit out of place, just solely because it has two cannons with a little tiny amount of ammo, 60 rounds per gun. That is not really worth it when it comes to trade-off for me. Spitfire Mk IIB can still be fun, but for beginners I would definitely not recommend it. The Sea Hurricanes are too heavy for my taste, although the Sea Hurricane, the cannon cane here at 3.0, can be fun for a run out or two because it has 4 massive Hispano Mark II cannons with quite a bit of ammo for these early days. And it can be quite nice to run around with this kind of ammo for you in the beginning while you start playing. So as a fighter pilot, if I have to recommend you the ideal line to go through, it is actually quite simple. You have a lot of planes here when it comes to fighters, but I would only stick to these two, to be very honest. The Hurricane Mk IIB trop is a beast at its battle rating, very consistent, a lot of guns, 12 7.7 millimeter Browning machine guns with a lot of ammo, fantastic. Can turn, it's not great at speed, but nothing bad either. It's 2.3 battle rating. It is the ideal plane for its battle rating. And then you have the Hurricane Mk IV, which has even more horsepower, so it has the most amount of horsepower for all the Hurricanes in this line, and it has 2 massive 40 millimeters. It's a bit of a challenge when it comes to aiming, especially if you're a beginning pilot, but for the veteran this thing is your cream and butter. It is so much fun to fly this plane and so much fun to play around it with these 40 millimeter cannons. They bring explosions, they bring shenanigans. It is just my favorite plane in the rank, together with the Sunderland bomber, but that's another matter. But for beginners I would say the Mk IIB trop, and then for people who like some more shenanigans and can aim these guns well, the Hurricane Mk IV is fantastic. That is basically all you need to do in this rank. that is the most efficient plane for its battle rating, or two planes, if you can aim those 40 millimeters in this whole line. Now, of course, there is more to it than that. I mean, the Sea Hurricane with the 4 cannons can be a massive amount of fun. The first one I would just skip and go to the Sea Hurricane if you want to visit that for those 4 guns and have that experience early on, what it feels like to fly around with 4 massive cannons. Can be nice. The Typhoon can be nice for its massive performance with 2000 horsepower and its speeds at the early battle ratings. And the Spitfire Mk IIB, it has cannons, and you do have that turn capability, so it can be interesting as well. But for effective grinding, I would just stick with the Hurricane Mk IIB trop. It might be a bit boring, but bloody hell, man, it is a fantastic plane for its battle rating. Now, for attacker and bomber pilots, there is 3 planes here that I would highly recommend to you. Attackers have a lot of fun to have, especially with the Beaufighter Mark X, which has the rockets, of course. You can take it. You have 8 rockets that could account for 4 tanks being destroyed. You have the extra 6 machine guns compared to the Mark VI-C, and you can wreck a lot of soft targets with those 6 machine guns alone. They have 1000 rounds per gun. So you have a long way to go with that, and the Beaufighters are just a lot of fun. If you have to choose between these 2 Beaufighters, the Mark X is of course superior. It has the rockets, which the Mark VI doesn't have. It has the extra 6 machine guns, and it has a little bit more powerful engines, which it needs because it has extra weight because of those extra machine guns. So that really balances it out when it comes to performance with the with the Mark VI-C. They're both 3.0 battle rating, so I would just advise you to fly those 2 if you're an attacker, and then end up with the Mark X and just stay there and unlock the whole line with it. The Beaufighters are underrated. They're very much fun planes to fly, and they can be devastating as well. Now, for the bomber pilots among you, I would advise you to fly the Sunderland. This Halifax at 4.0 looks quite fantastic with the bomb loads, and it is. It's a great bomb load for the 4.0 battle rating, but it has 7.7 millimeter guns, and although you do get 8 that can all point backwards and can do some damage, you often get hits, and it just lacks a punch, and you're gonna face 5.0 battle rating fighters in that thing in up tier. So the Halifax is gonna be, comparatively, when it comes to battle rating, not as good as the Sunderland. The Sunderland can net you a couple of air kills pretty much every match with its firepower. You're facing biplanes, right, in down tiers. In up tiers you go to 3.0, but then the guns still work, the 7.7s. And it has a 4, it's packing a 4 machine gun turret in the back, and on top of the plane you have a double machine gun turret, which is also quite good. And if you can get all those guns on the target, it's going to be quite devastating as well. The Sunderland also has offensive guns. The bomb loads are not that great in the Sunderland, but you just drop off those bombs on a base and then you go a gunship, right? It is such a lot of fun to go gunshipping in the Sunderlands, especially with a couple of squad mates. I just can highly recommend it to you. It is fantastic fun. And the Wellingtons are limited in the fun. I mean, they don't have a lot of protection when it comes to turrets. The frame and the speed and stuff like that in these planes is all quite limited. The 2.31 is barely competitive at a 2.3 battle rating. I would say yes, but barely. And then the other 3 are just, you're getting higher and higher in battle rating with not a lot of additions to the setup of the plane. It remains basically the same plane with the same kind of bomb loads, and a 2.3 that is barely competitive at a 3.3 battle rating that is hopelessly outdated, and you're gonna be cannon fodder all the way. So yeah, let's not go too much into the Wellingtons. I don't like them. The 2.3 one doesn't even come close to the Sunderland, what you can do in a Sunderland compared to that. So ignore the Wellingtons, ignore the Halifax. Stay with the Sunderland, enjoy that. if you like bombing, go to the Beaufighter Mark X sometimes and go between these two planes. You'll have fun through the rank, and you'll come out mentally sane. So guys, I hope that helped you out a little bit. It's also for talismans, it's a little bit the same. I think these two warrant that. They are fantastic planes for their battle rating. I got a few for free here and there on planes that I would not put it on normally. The Sea Hurricane, for example, I got for free as well from the reward system. Sometimes you get something like pop-up, and sometimes it's a talisman. Hallelujah. For the bombers, I would definitely put a talisman on the Sunderland if you have some money to spare for that, and just enjoy the Sunderland and get a lot of rewards at the same time. Sounds good to me as well. There might be people that say Typhoon might be nice, or Sea Hurricane might be nice, or the Beaufighters. Definitely Beaufighter Mark X is also very interesting when it comes to that. But it's basically down to 4 planes or something. These two Hurricanes are worth it, in my opinion. Beaufighter Mark X and the Sunderland. And for the rest, it's debatable. But there's a lot of planes you should ignore. Wellington should be ignored. Halifax should be ignored. Beaufighter Mark VI, no use when you have the Mark X. It's much better in the end. Sea Hurricane, leave it. Spitfires, I would wait until the rank 3 with the Spitfires. But you can still make these planes work. So yeah, I just don't like them too much at the Spit rating. I think they're underpowered, they overheat too much. And comparatively at these battle ratings, they are not good. For this last rank, the Hurricane 1 late is to be ignored, and the Typhoon is debatable. As I said before, it has something to offer that none of these other planes have, which is speed, a lot of firepower, great boom and zoom plane. So there is that. Guys, I hope this helped you out. Do make sure to like the video. Leave me a comment, I always enjoy that, and do share it because I really... And do share it because that really helps the video. Also, if you have not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I get a lot more content out when it comes to this. The rank reviews will be my main outlet, and I will sometimes make loose reviews along the way when I go through these ranks. But the rank reviews are my staple, and we're going to continue with them. Also, do make sure to join me on my socials, my locals channel. You can get off One Thunder materials there, interesting content, and I hope you join me there. You can also financially support me there. Also join me on Rumble. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.